This is a classic Cuban-style daiquiri, just white rum, lime juice, and simple syrup. The rum is called Banks 5 Island Rum, and it's a rum that I helped develop. It's a blend of rums from Trinidad, from Jamaica, from Guyana, from Barbados, and it has a hint of Javanese Batavia Aragonite, which gives it some sort of like the bitters of the rum and kind of brings it all together. Went to college in Madison, Wisconsin, which was, I was there for 7 years. I took a year off to get residency to pay for school. Ended up staying an extra year to save money to move to New York City, which I did, it'll be 9 years ago in August. My brother Peter, at the time, was working for a PR company, and Peter was representing the Red Cat, Jimmy Bradley and Danny Abrams restaurant, and 5 Points, which was Mark Meyer and Vicki Friedman's restaurant. And I visited Peter frequently, and these were my two favorite places. They were these bustling new American restaurants. Both bars had one bartender behind the bar, and if you've been a bartender for a long time, when you see a bar where there's only one bartender, that's the sort of bar you want to be behind. Started out actually at 5 Points. Red Cat, I couldn't get a job. I was promised the brunch bartender shift by Vicki. Brunch was war at 5 Points. Her new general manager, now partner Chris Praskavetes, wasn't aware of this and interviewed me, not knowing that I already had been given or promised a shift, and hired me as a waiter. I'd never waited tables before in my life, so it was pretty crazy. I had to teach myself to be a waiter in order to eventually become a bartender at 5 Points, which I did, thankfully. I always kind of wanted to still work for Jimmy and Danny, and Jimmy and Danny opened a restaurant called Pache about 2 years after I got to New York. And what I'd wanted my position to evolve into it at 5 Points, but sort of didn't happen, was I'd kind of gotten really interested in wine, and as well as in cocktails, and I was sort of the stuck behind the bar sommelier at 5 Points in many ways. Everyone kind of came to me and asked for wine suggestions, and what I said to Vicki was, hey, it would be great if I could work a couple nights on the floor as a sommelier or sort of wine guy, and a couple nights behind the bar as a bartender. And when Jimmy and Danny expressed interest in me joining them at Pache, I said what I would like to do is be the bar manager and work a couple nights on the floor as a sommelier, and they said, well, that position doesn't exist, and I said, create it. And being dynamic restaurateurs, they did. So at Pache, I got to both run the cocktail program and manage the bar, and then work under a guy named Peter Body as a sommelier on the floor, which is cool. PDT was it was funny. I was working at the Pegu Club, and during my latter year there, I was working with a guy named St. John Frizzell. He was sort of like me. He worked one shift a week at Pegu and full-time with a good fork. And one night this guy came in and was talking about cocktails and started talking about me. And St. John was like, are you talking about Meehan? And he was like, yeah. He's like, well, I work with him at the Pegu Club. And it just so happens this guy, Chris Antista, was one of my regulars at 5 Points. So St. John sent Chris to visit me at Pegu Club, and I hadn't seen him in years, and he was working with Brian Shabera, who owns Criff Dogs, to turn this space, which was formerly a Thai bubble tea lounge, into a cocktail bar. So he came to me and said, hey, Brian and I are working on this space, we'd love you to check it out, what do you think? I came in, checked out this space, thought it had such a great feel to it, so I started working with mainly Brian. Chris sort of dropped out in the opening process, but Brian and I started working together. So initially I opened this bar as a consultant, and then about 4 to 6 months after we opened, I left both Gramercy and Pegu to take on the job as a general manager. First and foremost, my philosophy of cocktails changes from place to place. At PDT, what I initially wanted to do was classics, sort of a la Ted Hay, vintage spirits, and forgotten cocktails. Just take drinks that were lesser-known classics and work those in. So my first menu when we opened was a bunch of kind of lesser-known classics and a couple simple variations on them that were my originals. Audrey Saunders has called bars mousetraps before, and I think it's a great term because what she means is that a mousetrap is essentially something you use to catch something. And I think that there are certain bars that are open up that are trying to catch affluent people. There are certain bars that are trying to catch beautiful people, celebrities, jocks, frat boys, bankers, whatever it is. PDT always has been a bar that has been trying to catch the mouse that it's been trying to catch as the industry. I think that there's nothing more enjoyable for, I think, those who serve than to serve those who serve, because there's an appreciation there that sort of transcends just the transaction. What's ironic and funny, based on your question and also your assumption, is that when you actually come here versus other cocktail bars, I see a lot of my colleagues at other bars. They go to Painkiller, they go to Milk and Honey, they go to Death and Company, they go to Well. Like, PDT has sort of dropped off the top 5 list of a lot of my industry friends, which makes me sad. But what makes me really happy is that when I come in here, I see, 5 Polish tourists, or I see a guy with his dad and his wife, and I see a lot of people who don't look like they belong in a cocktail bar in here every night, and I see them, they get it, they're happy, they're smiling, they're having a good time. And when you stand in Criff Dogs, or when you stand outside during the evening, you hear people walking by and they're like, that's the place, or they're talking about it. And I just think that while we started out being a place that the industry sort of flocked to, we've since become like the date bar, the surprise your business partner bar, the Polish tourist bar, the phone booth is, people are coming here for the phone booth probably more than they're coming for the cocktails. And it's something that, maybe it doesn't stroke my ego so kindly, but it's, the concept itself has started to, I feel like it really works. And it's something that, for me, after sort of being so hardcore into cocktails, it's important for me to grow the platform, and I think PDT is one of those bars that is increasing the audience for drinks. We were all regulars at Dave Chang's restaurant at the time, and one day we were doing cocktail development, and John and Don and Brian actually came up with the idea of basically taking a deep fried bacon wrap hot dog, which is our sort of signature hot dog at Criff Dogs, throwing kimchi on it and calling it the Chang dog. So they went over and asked Dave if we could do it and if they would supply the kimchi, and he said sure. So the original Chang dog wasn't created by Dave Chang, it was created by John Darragon and Don Lee, on a whim. And the funniest thing was, we put this thing on the menu, and all these chefs who had been coming in regularly would be like, dude, how do I get my hot dog? I think ultimately I'm very fortunate to have right now 15 employees who depend on this job. There are people ranging from the Rum brand, or the sort of people at banks, to my staff here, to other people in the industry who, whether consciously or not, have a vested interest in our success collectively. So I think that I owe it to them to continue working hard, and I have a responsibility to a lot of people to do the right thing. Steven, I'm wearing your sunglasses because this is in fact the second time. First time we spoke, it looked like we spoke in a cave in Afghanistan. So since you wouldn't get a Canon 7D that shot effectively in low light, we're now using this very bright light attached to your portable camera. So I've decided to wear your sunglasses too.
Cheers to that.
Cheers.